Okay, so we're going to do an analysis of a piece called Solfeggietto by Carl Philipp Emanuel Bach. And this is going to give us sort of reaffirmation of a lot of things we've been doing in first year, a few things in second year in terms of harmonies. And they're going to teach us some other things, like when you have these sort of pieces that are not like melody and accompaniment or block chords, that kind of thing. And remember, this is after, this is one of Bach's descendants, so there'll be a lot of things that we can say are stylistically from there as well. We're going to see what the piece is made up of, and generally speaking, it's either arpeggios, where you go through the chord, or scales, often stacking these and then are sort of going between the two. And then we're also going to look at how we get the form of the piece. And these pieces generally start with like an idea. If it was a fugue, we'd call it a motive or a subject. If it was, later in the classical period, we would call them themes. But, we're going to have an exposition-ish section, which gives us material. And then we're going to go to another key and either have the same idea or a different idea. But in these kind of pieces from Baroque heading into the classical, we often use the same idea, but new key and then another idea, theme, or the same idea. Sometimes in this case it's going to be the same. And then another new key, maybe, right? And it'll do another idea. Usually it's a reiteration of these things. And if you're thinking about fugues, you can think of them like, subjects and then middle entries and more middle entries. And eventually we come back to the home or the original key, right? And then we do the last statement of the idea. And that's what's going to happen here. And this is great because we can use all different aspects of our understanding of scales and chords, cadences, and then a few chord progressions that are and sort of like compositional ideas. And so I think the big thing here is to say, well, how do we get from here to here? How do we get from here to here and stuff like that? And we're going to use sequences. Sequences are when you take a musical idea. It can be melodic, it could be harmonic, it could be both, and you play them out and then you repeat them again. Some sequences have very small little motives that get done again and again and again, and they generally travel by step, or circle of fifths, which produces kind of like alternating steps. So sequences, that's what's going to happen here and here. And the circle of fifths is maybe our most famous type of sequence vehicle. And so we'll see that here. Okay, so before we head into here, we're just going to peek and say, oh, 3 flats. And if you look here, C, E flat, G, right? This is C minor. And if we look at the end of the piece as well, the very, very end of the piece, down here, it's like C, E flat, G, C, E flat, G. There's a little passing note in there, but we're in the key of C minor. That's where we start in the end. And if we're going to do that, we should think about this for a minute. If I'm in C minor, okay, then we can think about where are our related and closely related keys, right? E flat major would be your relative major, right? And then closely related keys are ones that are +1 sharp, which is the same thing as minus a flat, right? And then another one's plus a flat right there. In other words, 1 accidental in either direction. So this is 3 flats. So we're looking at 2 flats, and we're looking at 4 flats right there. So 2 flats is G minor, and also B flat major. And 4 flats is F minor, right? And also A flat major. And I think what you're going to find here in this particular piece is that he's only interested in these ones on this side. You don't have to do all of them, but when a piece travels, that's generally where it goes. Okay? Sometimes when you're in a minor, it will go there, but not today. That's not going to happen. All right. if you haven't, if you're not familiar with this piece, you should just go and figure it out on the internet. I'll just put the title right here so you can pause and go listen to it. I will play through some of it, but I'm not gonna like play through the whole thing at tempo and stuff. I'll give you an idea. Okay, so this, you know, and then, right, it's a single line kind of thing. And then we're here, right? It's the same kind of thing. And then we're here. And what we find is that these two measures right here are exactly copied here, but because of this one transition, we get to go up an octave the next time. Okay. Now I'm gonna just quickly shade this all in, because this is our idea or theme, our expository material. This is what the piece is about. Okay, if it's about anything. And I just want to put that in there so you have a visual cue, right? And we're going to spend just a little time here going through what the chords and things mean. Okay. First off, we're in the key of C minor, right? Okay. And this whole thing is just alternating arpeggiations and scales, and it's really actually kind of fun to look at. So if we look here, there's a E flat, C, E flat, G, C, E flat. This is all my C minor chord, which is my 1 chord right there, right? I'm not going to put figured bass in here because it's moving all around. It's not a traditional texture like that. And that's all like an arpeggiation. And then we scale down until we hit right there. So arpeggiation, scale, right? And I'm going to circle this, by the way, with this right here. So you can say visually that color blue, it's the tonic or the 1 chord. Okay, and then we look here and it scales into the B, and then we have a G, B, D, and this is because of the harmonic minor. We raise that up, G, B, D, G, right, D. This is my G chord, which is my 5 chord right there. And again, I have an arpeggiation, right, down and up, and then I have a scale down, okay? So this is the pattern that he's doing. And the really fun thing about this is that it's no other chords than this. It's all going to be 1s and 5s. We can see this again. So this pattern right here, right there, is going to happen right there again, just up the octave, right? So C, E flat, G, C, E flat. This is my arpeggiation, my steps down. This is my 1 chord again, right there, right? And then I know it's a scale, but if you look what's being outlined, we've got a D and a B and a G, and then my D again right there. It's scaling down over a 5 chord right there. And this here is exactly the same as this right there, but it's up an octave. So I'm just gonna quickly, you know, do the same thing. That's my 1 chord again, arpeggios, scales, right? And then my 5 chord here, G, B, D, right? And that's arpeggiation and scales. And then my 1 chord again, this is exactly the same as this, like note for note, it's just up the octave, right? And again, arpeggiations and scales, and then my scale down, right? That's it. It's so beautiful because it's fun, but it's also simple. It keeps it to a minimum of chords, okay? And I did it in yellow so you can go like, that's my home key, all right? Now, when we're doing analysis, we're just going to scan ahead and see what happens here. We have stuff that's different, and then look here. This looks very similar to these other things right here, right at the bottom right there. This sort of arpeggiation up and scales down, arpeggiation up and scales down, arpeggiation up, scales down, right, and then more scales down. In fact, it is exactly the same as the top part, right? Like that part in the yellow is note for note the same here, except we're in a different key. Now remember, this started on the 1 chord right here, and then it went to the 5 chord, and then 1 chord, and then 5 chord, 1 chord, 5 chord, 1 chord, 5 chord, the repeats and all that. And if we look here, we can see the same thing. So by the time we get out of here, right, and we go here, right there, and then it's got the same sound, it's got the same function, it's the same thing, right? And then this is going to be analogous to the first two measures, and then over the page will be the same thing there. Okay, so we can try to figure out what key we're in here, right? And if you look, this is a G, B flat, D, right? That's right there. It's the dominant key, right? We went from the tonic to the dominant, which is very standard, happens a lot, right? You can also find that right here we have a D, F sharp, A, C. This is a D7 chord, which dominant 7, which is the 5, pushing us into there. So it's going to arrive and sound like that too, like a 5-1. And you're just going to have to trust me on this because I'm not going to take the time in the video. But we're in the key of G minor now, as of like right here, like for sure. We're actually a little earlier in the key of G minor. And this whole thing here is exactly the same. It's our idea, right? It's our theme, it's our subject if you're talking about fugues, although this isn't a fugue. It shares a lot of similarities in terms of using sequences and things going from key to key and then restating the original thematic material. It just doesn't have multiple lines, okay? And on the next page as well, we'll continue to color that there. But if you look, there's my G minor chord with the scale down. That's my 1 chord. And this is my D dominant chord right here, right there with it, that's my 5. It's going to be exactly the same. Oops, 5, right? We'll do this the first time so you can just see. This is my G chord. Again, it's my 1, right? And then here's my line scale down, just like we had here, scale down. We have scale down here. It's got my D, F sharp, A, right? This is, it's my 5 chord right there. It's doing the same thing. And as we pop over the page, we'll find it's exactly the same. It's like the same thing, but up an octave, just like the first time. Okay, I'm going to stop putting in all the chords because it's exactly the same. Like it's note perfect transposed, which is kind of cool from economy, and like it's fun to listen to once, it's fun to listen again to in the other key. So we got, all right, so there we go, like that. And then we have another section here. Okay, I'm just going to point out that as we get done this another alternative section here, see the pattern starts here again, right? It's happening again. And we know that this is going to be our 1 chord here. We can also check the chord beforehand. This is a C. Notice we've changed our clef here. C, E, G, B flat. That's a C7 chord, which is 5 of F. And here we are, F, which is F minor, which if you remember is our other related minor key, 4 flats, right? And, right, F, A, C, right? F, well, A flat, right? F, A flat, C, because of the key signature, right? So, yeah, okay. So let's think about that. We'll just do this one in a different color here, red. But it's pretty much note perfect, the same thing again, just transposed to the key of F minor, okay? There is D naturals used, but that can be explained with the melodic minor scale, not the harmonic or natural minor scale. But it's doing the same thing there and there, like this, right? And the difference is then here we have like this extra measure of tacking on of the 1 chord, and then something new happens, okay? And then I'll put ourselves in the key of F minor here. Okay. And then we have a retransition here, and we'll talk about what this is here as we get in the video. But we have a final statement of the theme again, and it is, with exception of these last little notes ending up so we can have a cadence on, on the 1 chord right here like this, there. This is the same as this right here, right? The first note is an octave higher, and then this all is the same, right? So we're back to the key of C minor. We're actually in the key of C minor earlier than this, but I'll just mark it there so consistency so you can see. And simply by analyzing the first idea, the opening theme, the subject, the exposition part, and then looking for that in other places and listening to it, we find that the sections of this piece are well delineated and very hearable because this comes back. Now, this is kind of funny, like what is this? Well, you know, it shares similarities with many things. Like I said, the idea of a line that's identifiable that makes a subject area is like a fugue, and the stuff in between are sequences that change key, and that's also like a fugue, but it doesn't have multiple subjects coming in overlapping with each other, so it's missing that aspect of it. And one voice fugues are, I guess they exist, but I don't really believe in them. And then this is also kind of rondo because you have like A, B, A, C, A, right? And then B, and then A again, right? So it's kind of like a rondo, but then usually the A parts stay in the same key, so it's not that as well. So, you know, it's got all these different things about it. It's kind of got an invention feel about it, except inventions generally don't have these little harmonic kind of things going on here, and they don't have as many restatements of they're not this long. They don't have that many restatements of the subject. Okay, oh, there we go. All right, so we're gonna go back to the beginning now, and now that we've established key points, which is kind of like saying what are our cadences, let's talk about how we get from point A to point B. That's actually something that for students is going to be, and if you're trying to figure out how to write something as a beginning composer, we get these ideas and we make them, they're great, and then we say, I don't know what to do next. Well, what you want to do is you want to get on a bus or a train or something and get from one key to another key, right? And the way we do that is sequences, which is repeated ideas, but you know, it goes a little further than that. In this case, what we're doing is something called a circle of fifths, okay? Which means that the line is going to go down by a fifth every time the chords are going to change by a fifth and keep going by a fifth and keep going by a fifth. And when we teach chord progressions, we always teach like one can go to anything, and you know, the predominants that are common are 6, 4, and 2, and they like to go to 5, and they like to go downwards to each other, and 5 likes to go to 1, and then stuff like that. We spend a lot of time there. And then we say, also learn your circle of fifths, but I don't think we do a good enough job giving you examples of why that's important. Well, let's take a look here. We go 5, right? We went from here, just doing this one-handed, right? And then, right? And then there we are, right? And this here, if you look, is a E flat, C, G, E flat, C, C, G, E flat. This is all C chord right here, right? Right there, C minor. And you could call it 1 if you want to. But the job here is to get us to the new key. And it's going to do that by propelling us around the circle of fifths, which means we're going to go down by a fifth and down by a fifth and down by a fifth. So let's take a look at this right here. Down a fifth from C is F, and that would be my 4 chord, and it goes from here. So again, I'm one-handing this off the side with my other hand, but this is like, right, and then up high, and then here is entering into my F minor chord, which would be my 4 chord here, and there's the rest of it, F, A, C, F. There's my A flat right there because of the key signature, and this keeps going up, and then they add the 7th right there. That's the 7th of the chord. Okay, so here is my F minor chord. If you want, you can call that a 7th right there, and that's my 4 chord, which is down a 5th, right? Okay, and then F going down a 5th is to B flat, right? And if you look here, there's a D, B flat, F, D, B flat, F, D, right? This is my B flat chord right there. And it's major, and that's my subtonic 7 chord right there, right? So using the, you know, so we go from here, and then here, it's all just my B flat chord, kick up high, and then to here. Notice that this pattern is the same as this one. This is a sequential idea, this going to this, and then we do it again down a step, right? This is our sequence. And then B flat will go down a third to E flat, right? And E flat is my 3 chord right there. And look, there's my E flat, G, B flat, E flat, G that we ended up in, then G, B flat, and then I add my 7th again right there on top of this. So this is E flat. You can call that a 7th right there. And this would be an E flat major chord or an E flat major 7 chord if we add that on right there, which is great. Okay. So again, this is my little sequential idea. It works by going down a 5th, and then by going down to the next 5th, we basically took this whole thing down a step and did it again right there. Okay. All right. So we have to eventually get out of this here so we can get to the key of G minor. And so we're going to do 2 things. We're going to continue our circle of fifths, although the sequence pattern will be broken. Okay. And we're also going to jump into this key to prep our ears for that. Okay. Let me show you what that means first off. Here, if you look, I'm in the key of G minor, right? And I need a 5 chord to push us into the key so we hear that authentic cadence sound. That's a D dominant 7 chord. That's spelled D, F sharp, A, C. And then there's an A and a D and an F sharp and a C and an F sharp, because this is going through there, and an A and an A and a C, right? D. This is all D dominant 7. And it's cool how it sort of is unwinding through here. It's like, right? And then it's got these high, right? And this, and then, right? So this is my 5 chord right here. This is a D7 chord, right? Which is 5 in G minor, right? And that preps our ears for that, okay? So if we're thinking in the key of G minor, and we're also thinking of my circle of fifths here, then we want to say, well, what is a circle of fifths coming down here that connects the fifths, but also makes sense from a chord progression point of view? So if I'm in the key of G minor and I have a 5 chord, the strongest progression I can have is to come from the 2 chord, because that's coming down by a 5th. So predominant 2 going to 5 going to 1. See that a lot in jazz. We do see this in all kinds of things right there. And the 2 chord for us would be a half diminished 7, which is, in case you're going, I don't know what that is. That's that right there, okay? And that would be a 5 step down and a 5 step down to there, okay? This is not in the key of C minor, right? But, and so we're breaking the tonality at this point. We've done our things here. But if you think about this, C goes down to F by a 5th, F goes down to B flat by a 5th, B flat goes down to E flat by a 5th. And if we were going to keep going, it would be A flat, right, which would be my 6th chord, right? But if we use the not natural minor, which is got a C, D, E flat, G, A flat, but the melodic minor, right? C, D, E flat, F, G, A natural, then it becomes this right there. So it's kind of a pivot chord. You could call this 6 half diminished 7 in the old key, right? But it really sounds more like we switched to the new key of G minor right there. And this is a 2. Oh, my pen's running out. Oh, curses, we'll be out of this. We'll have to switch to a different color, or maybe I'll just end up using a pencil. Becomes a 2 for that right there. And so it's doing its very best to continue the circle of fifths, because it is going down by a 5th. It's just not a perfect 5th anymore because we had to switch keys. New pen. Hopefully that one works better. Okay, and so 2 half diminished 7, 5. So sequence, idea, plus circle of fifths. And this is beautiful how it breaks out of there and just starts to build this. Now, you might say, what about this note right there? Non-chord tone, right? It's the neighbor to there. But then when it stretches out to here and it's going like G sharp to G to F sharp, this is the 7th of the chord right there. And it's a cool thing where it's like, right? Na, 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 and then up to the E flat because of the key signature. And then keeps digging out. And then the high. Right? Right? Sequence, circle of fifths. Very cool. All right. We do the whole thing again, but in the key of G minor. And then what do we do when we get to the end of that? Well, we have another sequence, okay? It's a different kind of sequence. It's not quite a circle of fifths, but it's still a sequence. It's using an idea, and then it's taking that and moving that down a step or so, where it doesn't have to be a step, but in this case it is, to get us to the next key, all right? So let's take a look at this right here. So we've come out, we're in G minor, and we did G, B flat, so my 1 chord, and then my 5 chord coming down here, and then I get to here. And let's take a look at this. This is still a G minor chord. G, B flat, D. It's all just arpeggiated with this in the bass right there. So this is a G minor chord. It's like my 1 chord, right? Okay, which is good. It's like an authentic cadence coming to here. But then if we look here, that's my 1 chord. It's now, they go to the F natural, and it's a G, B natural, D, and a G. So this is a G7 chord, right? And that's becomes a secondary dominant for another chord. It's like 5 of 4, which is C, right? So using secondary dominants and things, breaking the key in our ears is a great way of giving us not stuck in this key moving forward. But this is my 5, and we can do figured bass here. That's the 7th of the chord, 2 of 4, right? Which is 4 is C minor, right? And if we look here, we have a C, we change clefs, C, E flat, G, and G, right? This is a C minor chord right here. This is C minor. It's a 4, the thirds in the bass, like that right there, right? It's a cool sounding section where it's like, and then this comes down a step, and this turns into the secondary dominant. And then this is fun because these voices cross over. Like, you can't see my hands at the piano, but these are interlocking. And so I've got my right hand up here, and I've got my left hand up there, and I've got my right hand sneaking underneath, and then it collapses down, right? So this is, again, another dominant 7 in G, right? G, F, B natural there. So this is another 5, 7 of 4, right? That's right there. This is right here. This will become 5. This is a 4, 3. That's in the bass of 4, like that, right? Okay. Which is going to go to another 4, which is C minor. This is C minor right here, right? Okay. And that's my 4 chord for certain. But if you look, I know it's scrunched here, but you see this pattern is the same here, and that pattern's the same there, and that pattern's all the same right there, and this is stepping down like this. So although it is the logical thing to go to the 4 chord here, this is going to stick in our ears like it's a 1 chord now, right? It's going to feel like 5, 1. So it feels like we're in C minor because it's sort of modulated as a 4th away, right? Okay, and it's not really C minor because it's transition. It is kind of. It's setting us up. This is setting us up to push forward. This is going to do the same thing. So let's just look at this chords. This became the dominant version of this. This became the dominant version of this. It's a C7, C, E natural, G, C, B flat's right there. That's like the 5, the 5, 2 of 4 in C minor, right? And then, and what's the 4 in C minor? Well, that would be F minor. And that's what this is right here. See? F, A flat, C, C, right? So that's like my 4 right there. But because this goes back and becomes the same thing, like a 5, 4, 3 of F, right? This actually all just turns into feeling like a 1 going to a 5, 7, which pushes us to the new key. So again, this idea right here, transposed down a step, gotten too smoothly by the way the chords go, right? And we have a sequence that pushes us from here to here. And then we get to do the whole thing again, right? Now, this is about the time in the movie or the story or something that that we have to start thinking about getting back to our old key again. Okay, so we've gone out and we've adventured. It's like we were young and we learned how to be musicians, and then we graduated high school, and then we got on a bus and went to the big city, and then got our college training in a different town, the bigger whatever, right? And then we went to grad school or something like that, or we went on the road and stuff, and so we had to get on another trip, train, plane, or something like that, and then we worked in another city, right? And now we have to figure out what we want to do with our lives. We want to work as professionals back where we grew up or something like that, right? Don't worry, it's not a couldn't make it out in the world. Just come home and do triumphant. So what happens next? Well, we're cadencing in F minor. This is my 5 chord right there, right? It's my C, E, G, right? It's my 5 chord. And it's coming to a 1 chord right here. And this is all just F minor, F, A flat, C, F. And it's just arpeggiating down, right? So you get out of here. And then it's, right? Da, da, da. Sorry, I'm doing this blind off with one hand. And it should go to F, right? It's just in a prolonged 1 chord right there, which is cool. But we have to get home. And so what happens is it says, no, I'm kidding. Here's a D flat chord. This is an interesting chord because you think it's just going to go 1. It's like the finishing of the authentic cadence. It's like you get your authentic cadence and then it says, nah, 6, which is a deceptive cadence. So it's like an authentic cadence that did, but then decided not to. It's like in Scooby-Doo or something when they take off the mask and says, it's not so-and-so, it's the evil Mr. Jenkins or something like that. And then it's like, what? And so when this thing finishes and comes down here, you get this surprise. Right? Okay? And if you think about what that is, because we're going back to the key of C, going back to the yellow key, right, the first one, D flat equals Neapolitan in the, the other key, which is the same thing as flat major 2, which is kind of cool. Okay, and Neapolitan is like a 2 chord and wants to go to 5. Hope that was all on camera. Yeah, it's on camera. And so if we look here, so it was Neapolitan back there, right, which is like a flat 2. And 2 likes to go to 5. And look, I'm in the key of C, and that's my 5 right there. But not quite. Kind of cooler than that. Again, it's using the sequence idea, even though it's not a prolonged one. He went here and went up like, and then came down to here, and then did it again. But they have different meanings now. So this here is an F minor chord, right? Okay, but it's over the C, so it's like an F6/4, right? And then it goes down to here. So it's still thinking I'm in the key of F. Like you got this surprise. I'm just telling you about the Neapolitan thing here. You get the surprise, I'm going to my 6th chord, that's deceptive. And then it says, well, no, actually I'm gonna go 1, 6, 4, and then it should go 5 right there. Remember, 1, 6, 4 is just a substitute for 5, right? Okay. And then it says, surprise again, this is a G dominant 7 chord. And now we really are thinking in the key of C. So it's spliced these 2 things over top of each other, right? And this would be like a 5, 6, 5 in C minor, right? Okay. I mean, you can call it a 5 of 5 if you want, but in the old key, but we tricked you, right? This is like Neapolitan and then 4, it's like using predominance and then surprise 5, while at the same time feeling like deceptive cadence 1, 6, 4, which is my 5 chord, right? So you can think 5 in the old key, or you can think Neapolitan in this key, right? And then of course F would be like my minor 4, 6, 4, right? So this is in the key of C, and this is in the key of F minor. It's a sequence. The last measure and this measure are the same, but stepping down partly in the bass, and then there, right? And then look, one chord, C, E flat, G. This is my C minor chord right there, right? Which is a 1 chord, right? But it's an imperfect authentic cadence. It's not the real deal yet, okay? And then we have, this is the predominant here. It's like an F, A flat kind of chord, maybe. I mean, if you think of this as a non-chord tone, it could be a B flat, but I don't think so. I think this is just an F, A flat chord, which would be my F minor chord, which would be my 4 chord, right? And then here I have a G and a E flat. That's part of my C minor chord. I know there's not a lot there, but I'll play it for you and you'll hear it. It's a 1, 6, 4, 5. And so we are finally saying, okay, we're cadencing for real back to the key of C, right? So when we get to here, it goes surprise, right? And then let's see, we're way up here. And then we come up and go, C chord. And then predominant. And then here's my 1, 6, 4. And then 5. And then, yay, we're back, right? To the key of C. But he's going to take this old idea that he had before, and he's going to sort of use it for, like we've come home to our hometown, but rather than just doing the same old thing, he's going to do this last flourish. It's like coming back after all your training and say, look at all this crazy stuff I can do, right? And it's that whole idea that was really cool before, right? Right, and then more of it. Etc. And guess what this is? It's a sequence, and it's also circle of fifths. Let me just show you, and then we'll be done. This is becoming long. This is C minor. We won't worry about inversions right now, okay? This is G7, right? This is C7. This is F7. And you'll have to trust me. We can go through this, like G, B, D, F. I will do it. C, E, G, B flat, F, A, C, E flat. And F likes to go down to B flat, and that's a 7, right? They're all dominant chords. And then that's going to go to E flat, but this is also a dominant chord, E, G, E flat, G, B flat, D flat, right? And then, well, I'm not going to get into this too much, but this is 7 diminished 7 of 5 in the key of C minor. It's an F sharp diminished chord, which should take us to G, right? And then this guy right here is a F sharp, A flat, E flat, C. And sounds great, by the way. Sounds like this. Sounds like with the other chords, right? And what we have here is an augmented 6 chord. A flat to C to F sharp is an augmented 6. And if you add the E flat in and the C, then what we have is a German augmented 6 in the key of C. Okay? So we arrive back home and then we go crazy with our sequence and everything's a dominant. So it pushes as hard as possible and it's the flashiest part. It's like we come home and people go, isn't that so-and-so went away to college and then went and did grad school and then worked professionally and now they're back. And it's just like, we go crazy with this. It's a lot of fun. And then instead of just having traditional predominant to go to my 5 chord right here, I put a German on, which is much more chromatically tight, pushing us there. And then before we resolve that, it turns into the 7 diminished of 5, which, yeah, you know, it's even more crazy. So it's like tightening up the screws on this. And then when we get here, we have the granddaddy of all, grandmother, granddaddy, the great, you know, like big flourish here. It's going to be an authentic cadence, right? In fact, if you look here, I've got my G and I've got my B, D, F. Right, so this is like a 5-7 and it's in root position, and I know that it kicks over to the E flat, but you know, there's my 1 right there. This is a PAC or a really close IAC, depending on how you think about that right there, right? And then if you look at this, this is my C, E flat, G. This is all C chord over a G and an E flat. This is my 1, 6, 4. That's my 5 chord right there. Right? And then we get a final statement. The only thing that's different about this is that instead of doing the scales, they deacon here, and then they scale down here, and they scale down here so that we can get these last little things. And that's it. If we could map this for ourselves, just in final, we have idea, right? And it's in C minor. And then we have a sequence, right? Which takes us to G minor idea. Same idea though, right? It's exactly the same, right? And then we have another sequence, right? It's a different one. And that takes us to F minor idea, same idea, right? And then we have another little sequence, and then it's very short, takes us back to C minor. And we do a crazy cool thing. Like it's like we go off a little ballistic first, and then we have a big flourish PAC cadence, and we do the C minor idea. I think I may have gone off camera here. Let's see. Nope, we're still there. Good. Right? Idea, 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 idea. Things to get us there, things to get us there, and then something to celebrate, like a climax or apex of the piece right there. Okay? Circle of fifths are very important to be able to calculate, not just in a key, but going around just down a perfect fifth, down a perfect fifth, down a perfect fifth, right? So it's also noticed that our crazy thing here is also a circle of fifths, just not the diatonic ones or in the key, but just going around dominance like that as well. Okay, hope that was fun. You should definitely check out a recording of this again. Solfeggietto, and it's by CPE Bach. It's a very fun piece, slightly longer than just an invention, and very rewarding to play as well. All right.